Well, hey everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside. Let me get everything arranged here on the screen. Welcome to the next in the series, the Back Porch Herbal series. This one is going to be on the respiratory herbs. Now, I've put this together in a post form on the blog over at Stepping Aside. So, if you want, I have, and it's also linked below the video here. So if you want to click on that and follow along, you can, or if you just want to refer to it later. There's some links within it that I'm an affiliate and so, for Amazon, and so it'll take you to Amazon if you want to purchase any of them for use. But otherwise, you can just follow along if you want or use it as a reference if you forget something. But what we're really talking about, I'm not going to actually read the thing or anything. I'm just going to talk about it and kind of use it as notes. What we talk about when we think about respiratory herbs are herbs that are both expectorant, which brings stuff up, bring up the mucus and get you to cough and get all that crap out of your lungs. And they're also demulcent, which they're soothing. Now, we also talked about demulcent herbs in the nervines and the nervous system herbs. Anything that coats and soothes is going to be useful for both the nervous system and the membranes of the respiratory system and all of that. So also the throat, any of that to help soothe and calm things. But the other thing is you got to bring it all up. Some of them are also diaphoretic, which means that they're going to promote sweating, which is what happens when you have a fever. You want to, the heat that's building up needs to get out. And so how do we do that? We perspire. And so sometimes, though, it kind of gets stuck there and you need something to help break the fever. And when we talk about, breaking the fever, what that means is that it releases from the body in the form of perspiration. So anyway, just a little bit about that. Now, just as a quick reminder, we're also going to talk about both leaves and roots in this. And so remember, leaves and stuff like that, berries, seeds. Some roots, like valerian, have a whole lot of volatile oils to it. So those are infused. You just pour boiling hot water over them and infuse them for anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on how much you're using. The bigger amounts, like in a quart mason jar or a French press, I tend to do 20 to 30 minutes. That's just me. You'll want to wrap something around it to keep the heat in if you do that, though. Roots and barks are decocted by bringing them to simmer in a quart of water on the stove. You don't want to boil it. I start with lukewarm water and rather than cold, but a lot of herbalists start with cold water, but I'm impatient, so I just kind of, use a little bit of lukewarm water and then throw them in and then cover them and then simmer them for about 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, whatever you want to do. You can either strain and drink that as a tea, or you can strain it out, right, and then pour it over your herbs for the rest of your tea, basically, or your infusion, rather than just using, hot water from the kettle, that's boiling. You can actually take that stuff and pour it over. I like to do that. I like that, using both roots and leaves, the upper and lower, sort of the as above, so below nature of them. I really like that. So I like to do it that way. I'll do that a lot with dandelion root or yellow dock root or something, just to get things flushing through the body, and I'll pour it over other herbs to sort of help balance things out. So it's kind of cool to do it that way. But the first one we're going to talk about is horehound. Now, horehound was growing on the property, so somebody must have put it in before we moved here. We moved here in 81. My husband tilled it. And I don't always, cut the flowers off to keep it from flowering, and spreading, right? So if I don't harvest it, before it starts to flower, then the wind will also carry it. So know that if you plant horehound, it's going to be other places when you least expect it, which is awesome. I can just walk off my front porch and there's some growing on the ground. I can grab some and put in some tea, fresh and all that. So, but anyway, horehound is, let's see, the leaves and flowers are used in teas, infusions, and tinctures. I do a lot with horehound tincture, but I like to use it, dried or fresh, in teas. It has mucilage, tannins. It's got a bitter taste, so it's also kind of good for digestion too. But it's good for colds, coughs, and bronchitis. Maybe you've heard of horehound candy. My mother brought some home one day, and oh my God, I just thought it was incredible. So you can also use it to make a syrup, and then from there make candy out of it too. But you're going to be adding some sugar there as well for that. But it can be combined with licorice root and marshmallow leaf, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, to make a really nice soothing tea that's great for cough, gets the expectorant aspect going. Let's see, it acts as, again, as an expectorant and a tonic while it soothes mucous membranes. And again, it can be used both in tea and tincture form. The next one we want to talk about is mullein. Now, you're probably familiar with mullein. It grows wild everywhere. It's the light sagey greenish. It's not a dark colored leaf, really. Well, I mean, sometimes it is. It depends on how old the leaves are. Sometimes they can get a little darker, but you'll see on the blog post the color they typically are. And what will happen, not in the first year, but I think in subsequent, I don't think it really happens so much in the first year, but subsequent years, they're going to grow tall spikes. And you're going to see yellow flowers on that, and you can use the yellow flowers. You would infuse them actually fresh into oil, and that can be used for earaches. Just have a couple drops in the ear for earaches. That type of infusion, though, because you're using fresh flour, you're going to want to cover the top with cheesecloth and set it in the sun to infuse. You want to have the gases escape. Anytime you use any fresh flowers in oil, you're mixing water with oil, basically. And so you've got to allow for all that to escape. Otherwise, it tends to get icky, and you don't get what you want, right? So anyway, that's just an aside, though. But the entire plant, again, can be used. Mullein root is great for, I give it to my husband for arthritis. I do like microdosing, like 3 or 4 drops, along with this other tinctures I give him. We do them in little shot glasses and then add water to it. We just take them that way. But you can put them in tea as well. But the leaf is going to be used now to keep the respiratory system clear. Believe it or not, it can actually be smoked to do that, but we aren't going to do that here today. We're going to use it in tea blends if expectorant is needed, because it's great for that. Now, marshmallow, and I do want you to go to the blog so you can see this post and see what marshmallow actually looks like, the tall stuff, if you're not familiar with it. Usually you see the common mallow growing close to the ground. It's, a variety of it, but it's not as spectacular in its growth, especially when it flowers, as the marshmallow is. It's perennial, so, it comes back year after year. But both the root and the leaf and the flowers are used. I guess the flower can be made into like a syrup, and I'm not going to talk about that here. But the leaf, I use the leaf all the time in just about every single tea blend I make, just as one of my main staples. But it's mucilaginous, it's demulcent, it's emollient. You can kind of tell the leaves, even though they seem to be somewhat sturdy and thick, they're not like a thin, frail leaf, but they're very soft to the touch. So I don't know if that would be included in what's known as the doctrine of signatures as part of it, as far as being soothing and coating to the lungs, but maybe. Now, the dried root can also be used respiratorily, but mostly I use that for digestive stuff. Oh, and the root, the powder, when you powder it up, it used to be used, they used to decoct it and make it into this confection that we later then created marshmallows from. You don't see the herb in it, because it's just sugar, but well, I don't know what all it is, but it was the precursor to what we now know as marshmallows. But it does soothe the respiratory system with its cooling sweet flavor and its mucilage. That's the goopy stuff, and that's what coats both nervous system and respiratory tract. So now, one thing I will tell you, although I usually just go ahead and pour the boiling water over it or some decoction over it, it actually extracts best cold. So you would put some in a jar, pour cold water over it, or lukewarm water, or tap water over it, basically, and then cover it and let it sit. It's mucilage, its type of mucilage just, I guess it just extracts better in cold water, but I don't do that. I just, I mean, I can, but I don't. I'm just too lazy, so I don't. I just put it in with the rest of the stuff. But the root and the I forget who it is. It might have been, well, I won't say. One herbalist I was reading. It might have been Matthew Wood, but I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. Says that you can use it interchangeably between in terms of the medicinal effect, the leaf or the root. You can use them interchangeably. So don't, if you don't have root, don't worry about it. Use the leaf at least. The next one is an interesting plant, and I have to tell you, I started to grow some next to my horseradish, and honestly, even though the leaves aren't the same, they kind of look similar to horseradish roots. They're big, and you'll see that when you go to the blog and scroll down and you see the elecampane. They have little yellow flowers, about yay, maybe at the most when they're fully open, but they cover the top of the plant, and they're very cool. But what you use again is the root here. And again, I wanted to include the use of roots in this because they're foundational, and I just think the symbiosis between this, or the symbiotic relationship between the upper and lower parts of the plants, I think that you can't go wrong using them this way. But in any event, you're going to use the root with this. Now, elecampane soothes wet, mucousy coughs and respiratory infections. It's an expectorant, it's an astringent, so it dries secretions, and a tonic. That's the nice part about a lot of this stuff. It has a tonic effect on the body. It rebuilds. A lot of these herbs will rebuild and strengthen things. But you're going to, again, because it's a root, you're going to want to decoct it on the stove. And it can be, you can throw some licorice root in there as well. And we'll talk about that here next. Just quickly, I've got a little section at the bottom of additional herbs to consider, and I don't talk about them in detail or anything, just kind of the general information about them. But you can combine it with licorice root for a wonderful remedy to treat cough and inflamed lungs. Elecampane also tinctures, the root also tinctures well. Let's see, I might have some over here, or maybe I have this smaller stuff over here, but I've got it ready. I have a lot of my stuff for the cold and flu season. And as far as for COVID, I don't know. COVID is weird and it's different. And even though it's respiratory, it seems to be vascular. So you're going to have to talk to somebody before thinking that this stuff is going to resolve any COVID symptoms, because I don't know. We don't have enough information about it. But for cold and flu, sure, but the COVID, I don't know. You're going to have to talk to somebody else about that. A naturopath or your herbalist, that you use, your herbal practitioner, and get their input on what they think you ought to do to help strengthen the body, to sort of prepare it just in case you happen to contract this, or to use to help if you've had it and gotten over it. Maybe you need to strengthen your body. So check with your naturopath or your herbal practitioner, as well as a medical guy or gal if you want to as well, allopathic medicine as well, just to be sure of the effect of herbs. So if you are taking medicines that have been prescribed by a doctor, that you don't interfere with anything COVID related that you're treating. So, again, this is just for normal stuff, I would say. Again, licorice root, expectorant, tonic, emollient. It also has an overall positive effect on the body. Again, we're going to decoct that root. Simmer again on the stove. Nettle, we talked about that in the liver herbs. It's astringent, so it dries up excess mucus and reduces inflammation. Again, the leaves are infused. Great for allergies. I will tell you, whether you dry it up and powder it up and take it as in capsule form, or you use it in tea form, terrific for allergies. Red clover, we also talked about that in the liver herbs. It's also an expectorant, an active antispasmodic, helps to clear lungs and reduce coughing. Again, we use the flowers and it's infused. Coltsfoot is you use the leaves. They're demulcent, antibacterial, expectorant, anti-inflammatory. Again, it's infused. Plantain, we talked about that with the liver herbs. Um, I mean, plantain is just one of those all around like nettle. It works on everything, urinary, drawing poisons out, blood purification. You can use it. It's a great goat poultice for mosquito bites and bee stings and other wounds. So it's a very, very useful herb. You don't want to eradicate it if you have it. You don't want to spray it. You want to keep it growing. Either the broadleaf or the slenderleaf variety, doesn't matter. It's demulcent, it's expectorant, it's astringent. So again, it's going to bring things up. It's going to soothe. It's going to calm inflammation and irritation in the lungs. Let's see, and in the throat, all the whole airway, all of that. Again, you will infuse that. Now, peppermint is a stimulant, but it also, clears things as well. Other mints, maybe not as strong as peppermint, but lemon balm might be included in that as well. But they have antispasmodic properties, and they can be added to teas to not only improve the flavor, like with Horehound, because since it's bitter, you could put a little peppermint, and just a little, because too much is too much, right? It only takes a little with peppermint. Spearmint's a lot more forgiving. You can have a bunch of spearmint, and it's just wonderful, right? But again, also good for digestion, but it also helps the lungs as well. So it aids cough, is what it does. Now, hyssop. This is the last one I'm going to talk about. Hyssop is wonderful. It's an expectorant, a pectoral. Again, for the lungs, it's used for chronic or acute lung infection as well as cough. Now, the one I grow, because my bees love it, I have a little area where I have some just plain hyssop growing, this particular one that I mentioned. But I actually grow Anise Hyssop over by the bees, and they love it. And when you think anise, you think licorice, and for whatever reason, it's really, if you put a couple leaves of anise hyssop in your tea, it's going to clear your sinuses. I mean, almost instantly. My husband loves it. I love it. I love the flavor. I don't like to use too much because it is somewhat strong. There's a pungency to it, and so too much is too much. It's like putting Monarda in stuff, or bee balm. It's just, you have to be careful how much. I'm not as fond of the flavor of it, and so I use it sparingly. In things, but anise hyssop is an awesome herb to use. You can grow it. I grow it. You can get the seed for it, and it reseeds itself, so you'll have it forever. But you can just shake the flowers, and the black seed will come out, and there's your seed for if you want to go put it someplace else. Although the wind will likely do that for you. So anyway. As far as how to combine these things together in a nice tea, I like using marshmallow leaf, nettle, red clover, plantain, and anise hyssop for allergy, or if I'm feeling a little stuffy or whatever. And here's the thing, I don't really get colds anymore so much, and I don't really even get the flu, although we had something in January and February. I got mine in, so I don't know if it was COVID, because we had just come back from vacation. Yeah. And so we don't know. It could have been a mild case of COVID, but we don't know. Or it could have just been H1N1, but it was definitely a coronavirus type thing that we had. And I never saw, my husband was really, really ill for, I don't know. I mean, it really took him down for a few days, and which doesn't usually happen. If it does, maybe for a day or an afternoon, but after that, he'll sleep, and he'll be up and around. This took him out for at least 3 days on the couch, and then for me, I started getting it the end of January, and I had a cough through, oh boy, the end of March. So I was using a lot of this to try to help keep it under control, and eventually it stopped, but it took a while. So whatever that was, using herbs helped me to try to get through all of it, and to try to deal with the sinus stuff, because I think it was the sinus dripping that was causing the cough. So anyway, if a chest congestion is a problem, I might add mullein leaf to those herbs that I just mentioned, and then decoct some elecampane root and use that liquid to pour over the herbs, right, including the mullein leaf, to try to get rid of that congestion. Or if there's a cough, again, I would add horehound to the herbal mixture and then decoct some licorice root to then pour over the herbs to infuse with that. I mean, licorice root is great. I use it in I also use it. It's good for arthritis too. I use it as part of my RA formula that the RA tincture I formulate. I just think it's great, and it tastes yummy. I'm growing some in a pot, and I have some growing outside. I'm surprised that it comes back, but it does. I think it's okay for zone 5, but it's kind of iffy. It's on the outside edge of it. So I have some growing in pots. It's starting to come back up again. I'm letting it grow for a while because I'm going to be harvesting the root, but I want to make sure it's big enough so I've got it. Otherwise, I just buy it from someplace like, Mountain Rose Herbs or someplace, or online here at Amazon. Either way, what I've linked to here for it is from Amazon. But again, licorice root is awesome. And again, any of these herbs can be tinctured. And so if you had just a regular balancing tea blend, you could add, a couple of 2, 3, 4 drops of tincture to your tea, just to fortify it with some of these in case you don't happen to have them in dried form or fresh form. Again, use tinctures. I do that, and my husband does it. We do tinctures, a tincture mix every day. And it's very healing. So, but again, the disclaimer, of course, always that this information is for educational purposes only, not intended to diagnose any condition or prescribe any treatment. Consult your medical or herbal professional for further advice regarding the use of herbs, particularly if you're already taking prescribed medications, to avoid any unnecessary or harmful interactions. Please seek treatment from a medical professional should symptoms occur that don't quickly resolve on their own. If you're pregnant or planning to become pregnant, please consult your medical herbal professional before using any herbs at all. Herbs are medicine. So, if you're going to be thinking about interactions between actual prescribed drugs, you've got to think about the same with herbs as well. So anyhow, that's it. Again, I'm going to link to this below the video, to the blog post, so you can see that and refer to it if you need to. Otherwise, thanks so much, and we'll see you again. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside. This has been another edition of Back Porch Herbal. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do the next time. Maybe we'll stop and I'll talk to you about making salves or something. Anyway, or maybe we'll go on with some other herbs. Maybe the urinary herbs. Maybe we'll do those. So, yeah, you never knew that corn silk was a good thing, did you? Well, it is. So, anyway. Thanks a lot for watching, and wear a mask if you go out around anyone at all. The COVID is increasing right now. If you are planning to go and visit family during the holidays, don't. Just don't. The outbreak is all over the country right now, and it's increasing, and we don't need anybody else to die. So please, please, please stay home and be good to yourself. If you have to go out, I'll say this first, wear a mask. It might be a good idea to wear a face shield now over that mask, because a lot of people are out there walking around without anything at all on, which is nutty. But or they're just wearing, a face shield without a mask, or they're wearing the mask below the nose. Well, you've heard me say this before. So wear a mask if you're around anyone at all, whether inside or out. And be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.